warm welcome. I'm I have with me today a very special guest. We've been talking over the last few months about artificial intelligence, virtual reality, cloud, and here's a company that has pioneered the entire cloud market over the last few years. The growth, even recently in terms of earnings, has been quite significant. We have with us Shantanu, the President and CEO of Adobe. Thank you so much, Shantanu. This is your second you've come on CNBC several times. I do. It's always a pleasure to be back, Kritika. Thanks for having me. Pleasure always. I'm going to start by asking you, in 2015 when we met, I remember you had said that India and emerging geographies will be the next evolution platform for most tech companies. In the last 1.5 years, what has the experience been? Where is India now as things stand in Adobe's global footprint? Well, I think it continues to play a very important role in two meaningful ways. The first is the talent and the skill set that exists here in India. And so we're a product company, we're an innovation company, and you look for the best people all around the world. And so I think our engineering organization here continues to have an impact. But I think also, you know, the big movement that we see is consumer expectations that are changing. And clearly the biggest revolution that's happened is the mobile revolution. And India is, again, leading the mobile revolution in terms of it being the preeminent platform for dealing with digital. And so I think, you know, we're always, if you can address the needs of customers who are the most advanced or the most have the most insight, then, you know, we're doing something right. Okay. You know, I'm going to start first by asking you about a broader question, then we'll get India specific. About 5 years ago, we used to say that India is still behind in digital revolution, about how the technology starts with Korea, Japan, USA, Western Europe, and then finally penetrates into India. Do you believe that has changed now? You know, we were here in December for my niece's wedding, and you know, as part of that, the entire family went to Ranthambore, which was this amazing vacation, and everything that I did there was digital. Really? How? Yes, well, in terms of getting the airline tickets and everything that we did with respect to the airlines. And so, you know, I think you're interfacing with companies and what you do, whether it's social, whether it's on business, whether it's for pleasure, you know, that's where the entire revolution is happening, and India is no exception. So India is ready to grab onto the global digital revolution, you know, be it 5G, be it artificial intelligence, be it virtual reality, on a very customer-to-customer basis? I think so. I mean, when we look at, you know, what is happening with respect to digital, the first is enterprises interfacing with their customers on digital. That's certainly happening. You know, when you look at what Make My Trip is doing, or Flipkart with e-commerce, India is clearly one of the leaders in that. Then you look at entertainment, right? I mean, if people are watching the IPL or if they're watching live sports, chances are, again, you're doing that digitally. So I think the consumer expectations are truly a universal phenomenon, and I think, you know, India is absolutely seizing it. The other area that I would actually highlight is what's happening with Digital India. And, you know, as people are thinking about, you know, what happened with the equivalent of the US Social Security and everybody getting a card or an ID to be able to do interface, what's happening with electronic signatures. So I think that fundamental move to digital is really universal. Okay. I've been told, and I understand that you can't give specifics in terms of investment, etc. But give us a sense on the expansion. You already have about 5,200 employees in India. 30% of your R&D is done from here. By how much can we see that scaling up, even if you were to take a 3 to 5 year horizon? What's amazing is every time I come to India, I'm told that, you know, we're running out of facilities and spaces. So I think something must be done right. As you know, we have a massive presence both in you know, Noida, where we started the company, and then after we had this presence in Bangalore, that just continues to grow. But for us, it's never been about, you know, just sheer numbers. It's always been about quality, because, you know, when you look at a software company that's doing product, unlike, you know, a services company, our numbers, I mean, we're, you know, order of magnitude 7 billion in revenue, 65 billion market cap, which would put us, you know, at the forefront of, you know, any tech company in the world, but we're only 16,000 employees. And so for us, it's all about finding the right people, the right skill set, and that's why we've continued to see dramatic growth here in India.
So what's the growth been like? If you could give us a sense, given that the last 2 years have been significant for digital growth in India, how has the growth been and what's the outlook in the next 2 years?
Well, as long as Adobe continues to grow at the rate at which we are, I think the employee growth, I actually don't have the numbers off the top of my head because that's not how we think about skill set. But if we've doubled our, employee population all around the world, I think we've probably grown faster in India than anywhere else in the world. So hopefully that gives you a sense with the 5,000 number of the kind of growth that we've seen in India.
What about in terms of revenues and the contribution to the entire global pie?
You know, the revenues we don't break out by India, and so I can't give you those numbers. But if you look at actually what's happened with the cloud revenue, we have two large businesses that we report on. We report on digital media and we report on digital marketing. And I think it's fair to say that in digital media, the growth was really happening back in the US and UK because that's when we transformed from the desktop-based business to the cloud-based business. I think what the impact in India has been is that larger enterprises have certainly adopted the enterprise term license agreement in Creative Cloud very successfully. So I think we've been very successful. Now, on the individual side where people are using our products, piracy still continues to be an issue, but the fact that it's more affordable, we are seeing actually more growth than it was in the traditional. So we're hopeful that, as long as media and content becomes important, India is going to just continue to grow.
Okay. You said to me in 2015, I won't ask for a specific number, but I remember you said to me that India has been growing in double digits. Would that be accurate for now and the next few years as well?
The whole company is growing at 20% for the last few years, and so India certainly outpaces that in terms of the growth rate.
Overall global. Excellent. Okay, so let's talk about Digital India. It's been broken down into many parts, be it smart cities, be it Jan Dhan. After demonetization, there has been an increase there. Where does Adobe step in? And how has your experience been in interacting with the government, in partnering with the government? Because there have been criticism, there have been foreign investors pointing out that project placements are slow. We aren't adopting from a government perspective to Digital India as much as foreign investors would have hoped. Do you agree with that?
Well, first, big picture, I think, just to set the context for your viewers, everybody is creating websites. And Adobe is the undisputed leader in creating the web infrastructure for anybody who has a digital business. And so whether it's a government, whether it's an educational institution, or whether it's an enterprise, that's certainly been an area of growth both in India and elsewhere around the world. Electronic signatures. We've talked about how electronic signatures and automating business processes is an important part associated with that. And so I think when you think about Digital India, I think about it in two different ways. The first is that the emphasis that the government is putting on digital and Digital India, it rubs off not just in terms of procurement by the government, but by acceptance of that as a way of dealing with institutions all around the country. And so, that does represent a tailwind for us. And so we're not looking at it just in terms of what is our business with government. We're looking at it as, is that a massive trend that's happening? And again, as I said, the growth rates here have been quite impressive.
And has it picked up in the last 1 year? Government's participation, enterprises' participation in ensuring that digitization is no longer an enterprise-related or segmented issue?
It is, and I know you're looking for sometimes the numbers that sort of, show that momentum and growth. And, I think for financial reasons, while we don't break out the numbers, the momentum has certainly been there in the business. Absolutely.
Okay. And is the government now stepping in terms of increasing the pace? That was an issue, and I remember I discussed this with you back then when Prime Minister had visited Silicon Valley. The issue at that point was that there have been delays, there have been issues with respect to clearances. Has that gotten better over the last few years?
We really haven't seen the impact associated with the delays that you're ascribing. And so, we continue to be impressed with, the pace at which it's happening. It's probably never as fast as enterprises want or consumers want. But, the general momentum seems in the right direction.
Okay. Let's talk about acquisitions then. You recently made a significant acquisition which has increased your overall space as far as the video, television area is concerned. what's next in terms of acquisitions, and how does India fit in? I believe a lot of your players are looking at startups, are looking at niche areas that contribute to the overall global footprint. Are there options here?
We continue to grow, firstly, big picture through both organic innovation as well as inorganic acquisition. And, you know, we're always looking for three things. We're looking for great people, great technology, and the financial statements have to, you know, certainly meet our criteria. TubeMogul was our most recent acquisition. It's trying to deal with the big issue of how do you deliver video on mobile devices and how do you deliver a personalized ad, which we think is going to be an explosive category both here in India as well as around the world. In terms of actually acquiring companies, for some reason maybe the companies that have been founded in India are not sort of addressing the kinds of needs that we are looking for in
on
terms
a global
of
level,
where we are expanding. So, you know, I wouldn't say that there are a lot of Indian companies on our radar in terms of software. And maybe that evolution was, it was services businesses to begin with, then there was a lot of innovation around the chip sector. There's certainly a lot of innovation around, you know, actual delivering websites and commerce and, you know, things like travel and hospitality. But software companies that help enterprises move their businesses online, we really haven't seen that much innovation or investment in incubating companies in that space.
Okay. You think that, what's the reason for that?
Well, I think everybody looks at where the big picture opportunities are, and if right now everybody looks at it and says, let's create a website that actually is the service, and if that's where the revenue opportunity is, I mean, all great entrepreneurs both have an idea and they look at where the current opportunity is, and so I think they're, you know, skating to where the money is right now rather than maybe thinking about, you know, what happens a decade down the line.
Okay. So for our viewers that are watching, be it enterprise, be it normal customers, Gen X, millennials, that a lot of your technology will be relevant to. What is the next big thing that will hit the market that will be relevant for India in the next 1 year?
Well, first, I think just to even put it in perspective, you know, I mean, there isn't a piece of content that, you know, the viewers are probably watching that hopefully wasn't touched by a piece of Adobe software. I mean, we created desktop publishing, we've created this mobile app revolution, we're helping contribute to that content. You pointed out when things are happening in 3D or augmented reality or virtual reality, there's some piece of Adobe software that's actually being used to do that. I think the big emphasis for Adobe right now is in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how do you take the confluence of what's happening with content creation and data and that intelligence and you know, marry that together to deliver a better experience. And the irony of that actually sometimes for the customers is they actually don't even know that that's happening behind the scenes. It just feels like, that was a content for me, that was relevant, that was personalized, that was appropriate. And when that magic happens, the irony is it may not even stand out because it just feels so natural.
Do you feel that, you know, for instance, Adobe is something that every single professional will know. So it's a brand which is synonymous to most enterprises. But when it comes to customers, I mean, for instance, my 25-year-old sister who uses selfie videos on a regular basis would know Snapchat, would know the end result, but doesn't really know the Adobe angle. Is there something being done to change that?
Well, hopefully every one of them who's doing something digitally is aware of Photoshop and is aware of the influence that Photoshop has had on the world. They're hopefully aware of PDF.
But there's so much more than Photoshop on PDF.
There is. You know, one product that I'm particularly excited about right now is a product called Adobe Spark. And Adobe Spark is something which is rolling out. And the whole idea behind Adobe Spark is everybody has a story to tell. And they all want to tell that story digitally. And it is by far the easiest piece of software if you want to tell a story, whether it's in video or whether it's in a presentation format on the web, to get going quickly and express yourself. And our vision is the tools shouldn't come in the way of storytelling. And so I think Spark is one of those products that has the potential to completely change K through 12 and education, which is an area we're particularly passionate about, because if you start off with kids and it comes naturally to them and they can do that, to your point about, getting viral adoption, then I think we'll see explosive growth.
There's an interesting bit of technology that I think would be relevant to Gen Next, would be relevant to a lot of areas that you are tapping into in India, on how you are using Adobe Sensei and artificial intelligence to change how selfie videos are made. Quickly tell us about that, and how is Adobe Sensei now fitting into the AI platform? Where does India fit in?
Well, I think Adobe Sensei is the magic. When people say, how did somebody create that video? How did somebody, whether it's in Bollywood films or whether it's in character animation or whether it's real-time interactivity. And to your point right now, there are millions of people who want to do that with a mobile device. And what Sensei allows you to do, whether you're dealing with images or dealing with video, is very quickly put together a really compelling story to tell. Sensei is the underlying infrastructure behind it, much like Intel was on the PC platform. So people may not know it's quite Sensei that's powering that magic, but behind the scenes, it's the magic that the engineers are doing that's causing it.
Okay. I would have loved to talk more about this, but since we are tight, I want to finish by asking you about President Trump's administration. There's a lot of worry, Shantanu, as you would have seen across India, be it from the government side. There have been comments also coming in from the ministry, be it from Indian IT companies' perspective on the executive orders on tightening the immigration laws. You have spoken about it in depth in your blog, and there has been a lot of concern raised by Silicon Valley CEOs. Do you believe that that will be a concern for India-US relations? Do you believe that Indian companies need to worry about how businesses will be now that the new administration has come in?
Well, I think at the end of the day, when you look at the India-US relationships, which was one of your questions, I think that has been on a path to increased cooperation and increased participation, and I think that momentum, just given the economy that India represents, given the economy that US represents, I think that's just going to continue to make progress. I mean, sometimes you have bumps in the road and you need to worry about it. I think in terms of being a government, at least in the US, the Trump administration that is talking about being pro-business, and you've seen all of the proposals recently about making the U.S. a more competitive place to do business with tax rates. I think U.S. businesses look at that favorably in terms of, being supportive of it. And from our point of view, in terms of people, we're a global company and we're going to go wherever the skills are. And so I think, all great enterprises figure out a way to, take advantage of whatever economic and socio-political criteria is. And so I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist for what's happening in India. I'm certainly, an optimist about what's happening in the U.S. with respect to our business. And I think that, relationships between the two countries will just continue to progress forward.
Okay. But do you expect the landscape to become tighter now? Do you expect it to be more stringent now?
I think the landscape will be different.
Okay.
But I'm, and I think that's something that as the laws emerge, that people will have to pay attention to. But
are you concerned about it? Are you concerned?
No, I continue. Well, I look at it with respect to what I can control. And I can control Adobe's prospects. We have the biggest opportunity we've ever had as a company. To your point, we're executing well. We continue to look at the cloud as the opportunity. And, I think that's what, at the end of the day, our dedicated employees are focused on.
You don't think that will reduce competitiveness? It's something that some of your colleagues in Silicon Valley have indicated, that it may impact the competitiveness landscape, so to speak.
For us, competition comes from everybody with a great idea and access to a computer. So, I continue to be paranoid about where the competition's coming from.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to end with a very quick rapid fire.
Okay.
So you know the rules. I ask you a
don't.
question,
Okay.
and you have to say the first thing in your mind. You don't want coffee with Karan? There's a rapid fire over there.
No.
Okay. So, Shantanu, you've been a part of Adobe for almost 20 years. You left India in right after your graduation. So we're going to ask you some specific questions. Firstly, do you miss moving from India? Do you miss the country?
I miss the people.
Okay. Your favorite Indian food that you miss?
Chaat.
Do you get chaat in US?
I do, and I'll go anywhere for good chaat.
Okay. Your favorite Indian food, your favorite food overall, Indian or otherwise?
Indian, without a doubt.
Okay.
Wherever I go in the world, I like to eat Indian food.
Okay. Favorite actor, favorite actress?
Indian?
Either way.
You know, I would have to say Amitabh Bachchan is probably my favorite actor.
An actress?
Meryl Streep.
Okay. Priyanka Chopra has made inroads in, is she in US quite a bit? Is she on your list?
I haven't watched many of her movies, unfortunately. So.
Okay. Okay. Tech visionaries, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Eric Schmidt, Larry Ellison, which would you pick? Or if there's another name on your list?
Well, I would pick John Warnock, the founder of Adobe. I mean, how many people in the world have created three fundamental innovations? He created PostScript, John and Chuck. Okay. He created PDF and he created Illustrator.
Okay. Your mentor, one person that has changed your career path?
My father and professionally Gurcharan Singh Sidhu, who was my boss at Apple.
Okay. When you were starting your career, did you anticipate that you're going to be where you are today?
No.
No? What was the one thing that made you leapfrog as far as career is concerned? One big change or one big success story that stands out?
I think you take initiative and, you know, you don't take no for an answer. And, you know, I've always said people are successful when they have a passion for what they do. And I have a tremendous passion for building products.
Okay. When you're not working, then what's your weekend hobby that you look forward to?
Time with family and more specifically golf.
Golf? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you play golf when you're here?
I do.
Okay. And lastly, biggest success in terms of the one thing that stands out for you that you think you did right, and biggest regret, if any?
Well, the biggest success clearly has to be the last few years at Adobe, what we have done with the cloud and what we've done with creating a new business. I think we've pioneered things that, you know, either one of them by itself would have been a career's worth of accomplishment, but the company has done both and done both amazingly well.
Okay.
I have no time for regrets or looking back. No.
Okay. Before I end, very quickly, if you weren't in the tech world, if you hadn't moved to US, found Silicon Valley, what would you be?
You know, I grew up wanting to be a journalist or a TV sports commentator, and Harsha Bogle.
Why didn't you pursue that?
I actually did that. I used to do commentary for Doordarshan many years ago, TV, and Harsha and I were both in the same high school, and we used to both do debates. So.
I have never heard this. This is very interesting. You should be on the other end of the interview one of these days. Thank you so much, Shantanu. Always a pleasure to meet you. Thanks a lot, and thanks for speaking to CNBC TV18 on your visit here, and good luck for the next few years going ahead.
Thank you. It's always been a pleasure to meet with you.
Thank you. So that was Shantanu Narayan, not just talking about Adobe India, what lies ahead, also talking about how there are no regrets. And yes, he could have perhaps been a journalist if the Silicon Valley had not found him. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.